You're watching Inside Automotive with Cheyenne Malone.
Hi everyone, I'm Cheyenne Malone. Advocating for consumers for over 28 years, Katie the Car Lady has become a trusted voice of transparency and expertise as an independent dealer. With a wealth of experience navigating car buying, Katie O'Toole Smith, founder and owner of Katie the Car Lady, can be seen on social media sharing insights, tips, and strategies even for today's consumers. Katie joins us now. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you so much. It is an honor to be with you guys today.
And thanks so much for taking the time out to join us. Talk to me about your journey into the automotive industry. I'd love to hear more.
I think anybody who is in our industry, it kind of chooses you. I was young, I was a single mom, and I realized there was a lack of transparency, and I'm going back 28 plus years. So they didn't have the laws they have today. There was a lack of transparency, women. And I noticed, I watched my mom buy a car and she had to fight so hard. And I look back at that and I thought, oh my gosh, people are hungry to be taught, to have information. And I've made a lot of mistakes. I have been in leasing companies. I've worked for independents. But the biggest thing I've learned is that what doesn't change is people, and I think over all the years I've learned it's never about the car.
And how is business today as an independent dealer?
Well, it's been up and down for everybody. However, what has happened in the shift in the market has actually been a blessing for us independents because consumers are frustrated and they want guidance. I would tell you that January, I think for a lot of us was, it was just navigating what was going on between the manufacturers kind of manipulating the market and incentives. But I will say that I feel blessed. I mean, my phone rings every day. And sometimes that is people all over the country just have questions about what to do or how to navigate, but I'm always looking for cars for people. So I feel very fortunate that my phone rings. And I also believe there's enough business to share.
And you obviously are in a unique position, Katie, because you are an independent dealer, but yet you advocate for the consumer. Kind of give us your philosophy behind that. I
am such a believer that if you advocate for people and you teach them and you show them how to understand a lease, how to understand what is out there without selling, I call it empowerment, really. If you do that, if we do that, then the consumers that are your people will choose you, right? So I'm very transparent. I will navigate people, however, and sometimes I spend time with people and I'm not a fit for them, right? However, they'll walk away knowing more. And so therefore it brings more business because people will give me reviews and they'll say, hey, she helped me. And I've branded myself as the person to, if you have questions, call her, right?
Things have changed, right? And prices of new cars at this point are almost $50,000 on average. So what kind of impact does that have, and what are you seeing in your market as far as consumer spending?
Well, let me tell you. So I was thinking about this yesterday when I was thinking about this call, like during COVID, right? When we were all trying to figure out what to do, and everybody, listen, however you want to call it, capitalism at its finest in this industry, right? I mean, it was. However, people were calling and you had guys saying, don't buy out your lease, buy this new car. I told people, buy out their lease, buy out their lease. And what it did is now here we are 2 years later, they bought out their lease. Guess what? They're not buried 30%, right? So what has changed is, yes, you have to navigate. I do a lot of comparison for people. I'll put two worksheets together and say, okay, if you buy this car, it looks like this. If you lease this car, it looks like this. What's your interest rate? What's your money factor? I mean, we walk through it line by line. And I'm a big advocate. Don't buy something. If you're feeling uncomfortable, don't do it. You have time, right? If you're not in an emergency. But how that impacts me, the price of the car is the price of the car. Every person, I mean, do I tell people to spend $70,000 on a truck? I think that's crazy. However, if that's what they want and if it's in their budget, just make sure you have all the facts and you make the right decision for you. I can't tell people what fits their budget or what doesn't. Every person has their own needs.
And at least you're providing them with options, right? They come in wanting one thing and then you put a variety of
Sometimes,
buffet of different things that they could do to.
sometimes, yeah.
Talk to me about credit and how it's impacting business, if at all.
It is. I mean, interest rates have impacted everybody, right? I mean, I've sent people to a lot of local credit unions. It's been challenging because, okay, not only are, look at Stellantis, Chrysler, Jeep, right? In 3 years, they raised their cars $10,000 across the board on all stickers, right? When they did that, okay, not only that, oh, by the way, your interest rate that would have been 2%, now it's 6%. Um, the other thing you have is people being overextended. And so how do they navigate that, right? Their credit is decent, but they're overextended because of whatever happened during COVID. And as we know, banks, if you don't fit in their box, forget about it, and you don't get that prime rate. The good part is manufacturers are now starting to come, like Mazda came out with 0%, right? Some of them are starting to come out with some incentives, but it does affect the choices people makes. And it should, because it is expensive. I mean, across the board, it's crazy. And then if your score is affected, that's why I do tell people a lot of times, they might think, well, I want a used car, but I'll say, well, here's your score. Okay. You're in the sixes, not terrible, but maybe you want to look at new because you might be able to get bumped to a tier 1 on a new car if we look at something, you know what I'm saying? So just giving the options, but it does affect choices. I mean, when you go from 3% to 8%, that's a big chunk of change on a $45,000 car.
And speaking of choices, what are consumers today looking for? Special features, brand, or is it all about price?
Okay, I'm gonna tell you something interesting. I think price has changed. I don't think as much price. And I'm gonna tell you why, because what they've realized is that there's choices and they want service. I mean, we're kind of coming full circle from where we were. They want service. They want someone to treat them with respect. They want to be like, I'll pay a little more if you're going to treat me well and I'm going to get the car I want, right? If it's fair, if you're giving me a good, fair deal. I think when you educate them and you take the time to sit down and just have a conversation and not sell them, I think they'll tell you what they want. And they'll tell you you're their bottom line, what they're willing to live with and what they're not willing to live with. And I think that sometimes you can't get out of them when you're trying to pressure them and back them into a corner.
Has
Right?
has there been a high interest in EVs in your market?
EVs have slowed. They've slowed. I think people are fearful of the infrastructure. I'm not as afraid of it because I've experienced it, but I understand why they are. You've got a huge undertaking. And I do think that we jump the gun a little bit, maybe on the production of how many we put in the market. That's only my opinion. I'm just one person. Um, I do, however, think if they don't create new battery, like a better battery, longer longevity battery, they're going to have a hard time. But we have some. It's not super. It was really crazy for a while. Now it's slow,
Starting to
dramatic.
fade. Yeah.
Mm.
Where do you see, in your professional opinion, the car industry going in the future? What direction?
So my opinion is not always the popular opinion. So just so you know, I see that if big franchises don't change how they are doing things, what their model is, I did a video on TikTok that went crazy, but I do believe that if they don't shift and change the model that's been going on for so long, we're going to see dealerships out. I mean, they are going to basically they're going to get it's going to be gone. Now you need to service cars, right? So they'll have service centers. But I do believe if they don't change that, because if you look at how the manufacturers have manipulated the market over the last year, and that is with how much we produce, what are the incentives they're putting out when you've got dealers with hundreds and hundreds of cars sitting on lots and you're not putting out incentives, right? Consumers are irritated with dealers on how much they made over the last 4 years on them. Call it what you want. I'm just giving you perspective. And I think that they're saying, we know we have other choices and we're not putting up with this anymore.
What changes do you think need to be made to make consumers happy again?
I think the thing that needs to change is how do we humanize each person that walks through the door? Like they are a human coming to you with a need, with an issue. You have no idea what's going on in their life. You have no idea what their story is yet. And then not judge them based on what their credit score is, but try to help them. Right. So that kind of stuff is like, you don't know. If I could tell you stories that would make you fall over, like when I hear and see things happen, but not everybody's like that. But if you have some people that are willing to shift how they do it, I think you would change the industry, and you would also make dealers a place to be comfortable to go again.
All right, solid
an
advice there. Katie O'Toole Smith, founder and owner of Katie the Car Lady, and also an independent dealer. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you guys just being willing to, share a different perspective.
Absolutely, and thank all of you for watching. We're now streaming on Roku and Apple TV.
Thanks for watching Inside Automotive with Cheyenne Malone.